It is card reveal season once again in Legends of Runeterra. Yesterday, the team dropped a new video on their YouTube channel teasing the final Call of the Mountain expansion, which will be called Cosmic Creation, set to release on December 16th. They also leaked a brand new mechanic called Augment, along with a new card sporting that mechanic. Today, we got even more card reveals showing off the new Augment mechanic along with a new landmark card. In this video, we'll be talking about all of it, and I'll be giving some additional thoughts on how these new cards could apply to existing decks. Before we jump in, if you like this type of content and want to see more, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future coverage from me. But let's talk about Augment first, as well as the card that was revealed over the weekend. So Augment reads, when you play a created card, grant me +1/+0. The first thing that came to mind for me was pairing Augment cards with Targon, particularly Invoke. But this can also work with gem cards too. Heimerdinger is another possibility since he creates turrets. There are even some other strategies you could try that have been wackier, but not as strong up until this point. Back Alley Barkeep works with this mechanic as well. You could pair Augment cards with Teemo and the rest of the mushroom package. Chief Mechanist Zevi works with this since she creates fleeting copies of cards, and even Ezreal works. Also, I believe counterfeit copies would also work with this, but I'm not quite sure on that one. Someone that knows for sure can let me know in the comments. Basically, Augment works with a lot of other already existing Piltover Zaun cards, but Targon is personally the region I'm most interested in pairing this with. Let's talk about the card that was revealed with Augment, Mechanized Mimic. This is a 5-mana 3/4 with Augment, and attack grant me all keywords on allies. So this is an interesting 5-drop, but I think the one thing that will hold this card back the most is the fact that it costs 5. This has excellent synergy with Heimerdinger, but the thing is that up until this point, decks typically get punished for running too many 5-mana units. In general, you usually don't want to run more than 6 copies of units that cost 5 mana, and Heimerdinger decks already run Vi, so if you try to throw this card in, your Heimer deck just gets too clunky. Unless the meta slows down a lot to where you could get away with running 3 copies of 3 different 5-drops. Before we move on to the cards shown today, a quick shout out to Cosmic for putting this graphic together. Be sure to check out his Twitch channel in the top right, and I'll leave a card with a link to his YouTube channel in the top right as well. So first off, let's talk about calculated creations, and we'll talk about the cards that get created by calculated creations as well. So calculated creations is a 2-mana burst spell that reads create an armed gearhead, Neandroid, or ballistic bot in hand. Armed gearhead is a 1-mana 1/1 with augment and quick attack. Neandroid is a 3-mana 1/3 with augment and elusive. And ballistic bot is a 2-mana 1/3 with augment that reads round start, create an ignition in hand. Ignition is a 1-mana slow spell that's also ephemeral that will deal 1 to the enemy nexus. So calculated creations itself seems alright. What's cool is that all the units you can get are also playable separately from this card since they're all actual cards. I do think most decks that would run this card will play this card on round 2, so they can get access to their unit of choice to play as early as possible, but there are some exceptions. I think there is a Bilgewater deck that can wait until later in the game where they have access to more mana to play this card and grab Ballistic Bot. The ignition you get from Ballistic Bot can stay relevant in a Gangplank or even Sejuani deck. Speaking of which, I think Ballistic Bot is the best unit of the 3, and probably the only one that's main deckable. But Neandroid seems pretty close. Neandroid also has the best name of the 3, thanks to the Nyan Cat reference. Anyway, I could see Ballistic Bot being played in some Gangplank decks, or decks running Sejuani like Teemo Sej, or even the Tempo Sejuani decks that also run Gangplank. Ultimately, this is probably meant to work well with the Piltover Zaun champion we're getting, so we'll have to wait for the details on that. But at least we have an idea of how this card could fit in decks outside of that champion. Next, we have Hexcore Foundry. This is a 3-mana landmark that reads round start, all players draw 1. The last thing I was expecting was for Piltover Zaun to get a second landmark. I do think this one is better than University of Piltover, but it still seems a bit underwhelming. I don't think there's a competitive deck right now that would want this type of effect happening every single turn. Veteran Investigator I could see in decks because it's 2 mana, you get a 3/2, and both players only draw once. It just feels like only decks like mill decks would want this, but maybe there's something I'm missing. I was even thinking maybe Turbo Deep decks could play this, but they already have access to Slaughter Docks. This is another card that we'll really need to wait on and see what the P&Z champion does. And finally, we have Aftershock. This is a 4 mana slow spell that reads deal 3 to anything or destroy a landmark. I'm not high on this card. I don't think it's that great. Gotcha costs the same amount when it isn't discounted, also deals 3 damage, and is a fast spell, and Gotcha is pretty bad. 4 mana is just too much for a spell that does 3 damage. Granted, this can hit the Nexus, and does give Piltover Zaun some landmark removal. Maybe if classic Burn Aggro makes a comeback, this might be viable since you'd have both this and Decimate. I just don't see it outside of that. I don't even think Discard Aggro or any Ezreal deck wants to cut cards to run this, unless other landmarks become a lot more relevant. But that's all I've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed this look into the new Piltover Zaun cards that were revealed. If you did, feel free to leave a like, as it really helps me out and gets this video out there to others in the community. If you don't want to miss future coverage of the new set from me, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell below to make sure you know when the next video goes live. Feel free to check out the other Legends of Runeterra videos that I have on the channel, or even the other places you can find me on the internet. You'll find links to my Twitter, Twitch channel, and our community Discord that you can join as well in the video description below. Thanks for taking time out of your day to watch this, and I'll see you next time. Take care.